She was the perfect picture of stability. Married, 2 kids, a well-paying job, a husband who never raised his voice. From the outside, it looked like she had it all. But one day she vanished, not literally. She still came home, still cooked dinner, still smiled at the neighbors. Because here's the reality most men refuse to see. Women don't fall in love with your résumé. They fall in love with how they feel when they're around you. Not what you say, not what you do, but the emotional echo you leave behind. You can provide everything, stability, protection, routine, and still lose her to a man who offers none of that. Why? Because the moment her emotions go numb, logic has no chance. A woman can sit next to you every night, eat your meals, raise your children, and still crave someone else in silence. Someone who makes her feel seen, desired, awake. And if that emotional high comes from a stranger, from a younger man who has no plan but knows how to stir her soul, she will follow it, even if it destroys her. That's not betrayal, that's biology. And unless you understand this, you'll keep losing without knowing why. Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "You are disturbed not by events, but by the view you take of them." Men are disturbed when they realize they did everything right. Yet she still left. But what if the event isn't what matters? What if it's the story she tells herself about how she feels when she's with you? If that story goes cold, your presence becomes a cage. And in that moment, she won't want to escape the relationship. She'll want to escape the version of herself that's become invisible in your eyes. That's why she starts dressing differently, smiling at her phone, laughing again. Not because she's cheating, but because she's waking up. The tragedy. You never noticed when she started falling asleep. The emotional decline didn't happen in one fight. It happened in the 1,000 moments you thought were fine. So the question isn't, does she love me? The real question is, what does she feel when she looks at me now? He didn't plan it. He wasn't chasing her. He didn't even know she was married. All he did was look at her like she was electric. Like her presence meant something. Like she wasn't just another woman with a ring on her finger. And that was the beginning of everything. You see, it wasn't about age, or sex, or rebellion. It was about how she felt in his presence. For the first time in years, she wasn't invisible. She was interesting, mysterious, dangerous, alive, and that feeling is a drug. The younger man didn't offer her a stable life or a steady income, but inside, she was already gone. And then came the moment no one saw coming, the affair. Not with a rich man, not with a powerful man, with a younger man, a bartender, a guy with no mortgage, no title, no 5-year plan. Why? He didn't offer her years of shared responsibility. He offered her tension, excitement, curiosity. He reminded her of who she used to be before life turned into a calendar of tasks and expectations. He made her feel like a woman again. Not a mother, not a wife, not a dude. And that changed everything. Most husbands lose their wives not because of what they did wrong, but because they stopped doing what they did right. They stopped noticing, stopped flirting, stopped seeing her as something to be desired, and started seeing her as part of the furniture, comfortable, predictable, familiar. But women aren't drawn to familiarity. They're drawn to emotional movement, to mystery, to that subtle sense that anything could happen in the next 5 seconds. The younger man, he brought back the element of surprise, and even if he didn't mean to, even if he didn't pursue her, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Her pulse. The Stoics teach us not to be disturbed by things outside our control, but to master what lies within. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And yet, most men try to control the outside, who she talks to, where she goes, what she wears. But they ignore the one battlefield that actually matters: how she feels when she's next to you. Because once another man makes her feel something you don't, your history becomes irrelevant. Attraction doesn't measure time, it measures energy. And in a silent war of emotions, the man who makes her feel most alive wins. The younger man didn't steal her. He just reflected back a version of herself she'd long forgotten. And the saddest part, it was always in her. You just stopped bringing it out. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't loud, it didn't come with screaming or slamming doors. Her exit was quiet. It began the moment you stopped asking how she felt and started assuming she was fine. The moment you looked through her instead of into her. She didn't leave because the love was gone. She left because she no longer felt seen. And for a woman, that's the beginning of emotional death. At first, she made excuses for you. You were busy. You were stressed. You were doing your best. But over time, the excuses became resentment. Because while you were focused on being a good man, a provider, a protector, you stopped being present. And presence is everything. A woman would rather be truly seen for 5 seconds than tolerated for 5 years. Why would a woman risk her reputation, her security, her entire identity, for someone who had nothing to offer her on paper? Here's the uncomfortable truth. She wasn't chasing a man, she was chasing a feeling. A forgotten version of herself, one that laughed freely, one that felt desired. She would rather feel desired once than admired politely every day. You thought consistency was enough, but what she needed was intensity. The kind that says, I still see you. I still want you. I still notice when you're silent, not just when you speak. But you missed it. You missed the moments when she changed her hair and you said nothing. When her smile faded quicker than before and you didn't ask why. When she reached for your hand and you pulled away, too busy with a screen, a game, a thought that didn't involve her. And in that emptiness, she started to disappear. Not from your home, but from your heart. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But for her, the imagination became her reality. She imagined what it would feel like to be wanted again, to be chased, to be the center of someone's attention, even if just for a moment. And when that feeling appeared, through a glance, a conversation, a touch, she followed it. Not because she planned to, but because her soul was starving, and someone finally offered her a taste of something real. You thought you were safe because you hadn't done anything wrong. But sometimes, the greatest sin is not cruelty, it's indifference. And a woman who feels invisible in your presence will eventually seek a mirror elsewhere. Not to find someone new, but to remember who she used to be before you stopped seeing her. It starts small, almost invisible. A pause before she answers. A shorter kiss. A smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Most men miss it because they're not looking for it. They assume love ends with a fight. But in reality, it ends with silence. With habits that used to be sacred now feeling routine. With conversations that used to flow now drowning in shallow replies. You ask how her day was. She says, fine. You ask what's wrong. She says, nothing. And you believe her. Because it's easier than facing the truth. But in those moments, she's already slipping away. Not out the door, but out of reach. Her eyes don't light up when you speak. Her laughter feels rehearsed. Her body is there, but her mind is somewhere else. And the tragedy? You keep showing up like everything is normal. You think, we're just in a phase. You think, this happens to all couples. But while you wait for the spark to return, someone else is already making her feel the fire. The truth is, women don't wake up and suddenly stop loving you. They stop loving you in layers, in unspoken disappointments, in unmet needs, in the slow erosion of connection. And every time you ignored the tension, dismissed her mood, or chose your comfort over curiosity, you trained her to retreat. One that hadn't been looked at as just a wife in years. And that younger man, he didn't offer her a future. He reminded her she was still alive. That's what most men miss. They think loyalty comes from history, from years built together. She learned that expressing herself doesn't get her closeness. It gets her conflict or coldness. So she stopped. She shut down. And now, you're living with a version of her that's emotionally edited, polite, presentable, but no longer in love. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. But you didn't act, you avoided. You dismissed the signs as mood swings, stress, or hormones, and in doing so, you missed the chance to intercept the drift. Now she smiles when her phone buzzes, but not when you walk into the room. She talks to others with more depth than she does to you. And yet, you think everything's fine. Because the most dangerous kind of goodbye isn't the one you hear. It's the one that happens while she's still lying next to you. You can't beg your way back into her heart. You can't fix months of disconnection with a bouquet of flowers or a spontaneous dinner. That might work for a moment, but it won't shift her soul. Because once a woman has disconnected emotionally, words feel empty. What she craves isn't an apology, it's transformation. And that transformation doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from presence. from power, from the silent strength of a man who doesn't flinch when emotions rise. Most men panic when they feel her pulling away. They become reactive, clingy, they over-explain, over-text, overreach. But the more you chase, the more she runs. Not because she enjoys the distance, but because your energy confirms her fear that you don't know who you are without her. And no woman wants to be your purpose. She wants to be drawn to your gravity, not be the only thing holding you together. So what's the alternative? Stoicism. Not the cold, emotionless mask some men pretend to wear, but the real kind. The kind Marcus Aurelius described when he said, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That's who she needs. A man who doesn't get thrown off by her tests. A man who listens but doesn't break. Who holds his line not out of ego, but out of earned calm. Because here's the truth most men can't stomach: she'll try to shake you. Not to hurt you, but to see if you're solid. If your emotions shift with hers, she can't trust you. But if you remain composed, present but unshaken, you become the anchor she's been craving. But a woman doesn't stay because of the past. She stays because of how you make her feel now. The man who thinks, "She would never leave me. We've been through too much," is already at risk. Because love doesn't die in one blow. It fades in silence. The difference between a boy and a stoic man is this: the boy tries to fix her feelings. The man allows her storm to pass, without becoming one himself. Women are drawn to men who embody quiet power, who don't need control but have mastered self-control, who can say no without anger and yes without desperation. The man who walks with a mission, who loves from choice, not from fear. That's the man she won't just desire. She'll protect the connection with him, because she knows how rare it is. You don't win her back by trying harder. You win her back by becoming harder to replace. And when you operate from that space, not attachment, not fear, but centered masculinity, she doesn't just see you, she respects you. And that respect is the only foundation love can truly rest on. Most men think the key to lasting love is effort. More dates, more gifts, more words. But love isn't built by how hard you hold on. It's built by who you are when things begin to slip. Because in the end, she won't remember the dinners or the flowers. She'll remember how she felt in your presence. Did she feel seen? Did she feel safe? Did she feel alive? Or did she feel like an obligation you were trying to keep happy? Love is not maintenance. Love is magnetism. The men who get remembered, the ones who keep her curious, calm, and connected, aren't the ones who try the hardest. They're the ones who radiate something she can't find anywhere else: emotional discipline, vision, unshakable presence. A man who even in heartbreak stands tall, who doesn't react with desperation but reflects with clarity. That's the man who leaves a mark. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And that's where this ends. Not in chasing her, not in proving yourself, but in becoming the man who needs no explanation. Because here's the secret: when you become a sanctuary of strength, women don't just stay, they evolve beside you. They reflect the energy you lead with. If your presence is firm, they soften. If your presence is chaotic, they retreat. So ask yourself honestly, are you someone she has to choose, or someone she never wants to lose? In the end, love doesn't fade because people change. It fades because people forget to stay grounded in who they were when it all began. Be the man who remembers. Be the man who doesn't break when tested. Be the man who leads with silence, strength, and purpose. And if you've ever felt like you lost someone not because of betrayal, but because of slow emotional erosion, type "I receive it" in the comments. You're not here by accident. In the way her smile becomes polite. In the way her eyes stop lighting up when you enter the room. You didn't lose her overnight. You lost her slowly, by becoming predictable, emotionally absent, and unaware. You're here because a part of you is ready to rise. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and let them chase. And when someone else makes her feel seen again, even for a moment, that's when everything begins to shift. You think you're safe because of the life you've built, but safety is an illusion when emotions are starving. And in a world where women crave to feel alive again, the most dangerous man isn't the wealthiest or the most handsome. It's the one who makes her feel something her husband forgot how to. And here's the question most men never ask: what made her stop feeling alive? And when did you stop noticing? Most men believe that love is earned by being the good guy, the provider, the protector, the loyal one. But that belief is the beginning of their downfall.